Sperm and ova are called gametes. We've established that already. But each has a very specific role in creating life, beginning with the ovum, or egg. Midway through a female's menstrual cycle, or their period, an ovum is released. Ladies, every month or so, your ovaries, and these are these things that you see right over here that I'm circling in red. You have two, one on the left side and the right side of your pelvic area. These ovaries release a mature egg into the fallopian tube. And remember, you are born with about 400,000 of these eggs, but they aren't mature until you reach puberty, meaning until you begin your period. Some women alternate ovulating, and that's releasing an egg from the ovaries, 1 month from the right ovary, 1 month from their left ovary. Others don't really follow a pattern. They may ovulate, and again, that means release an egg, 1 month from their right ovary, the next month from their right again, and then the third month from their left. Every woman is different. Now, the other thing to note is that the fallopian tubes are very thin. They look fairly big in this image here, but they're about as thin as one of your hair strands. In fact, why don't you just pull out one of your hairs from your head so that you can get an idea of how thin these really are? Do you see that? Yeah, very thin. Now, after the ovum is released, it enters the fallopian tube, and it takes about 3 to 4 days to travel through it. If it's not fertilized, meaning it doesn't get penetrated by a lucky sperm, then the egg is discharged along with endometrium, and that's the lining of your uterus. That is this part that's right over here, all this. That's what nature really has in store for women. A female's body is made to produce and bear children, so their body naturally produces higher levels of estrogen and progesterone, those are female hormones, to get their body ready to bear children. This period of when the egg is released, again, all of this is called ovulation. When there isn't a fertilized ovum and sperm, then these female hormones start to decline, and the endometrial lining, which is again the uterus lining thickening to prepare for carrying a baby in the womb, begins to shed. And that's what gets discharged during your period, or the menstrual cycle, which typically lasts 3 to 7 days. And again, it depends, every woman is different. And then the whole thing starts all over again. Now, the sperm, on the other hand, is one of the smallest cells in the body. Yeah. So when a lovely lady meets a handsome fella and they go to bed and do their thing, use your imagination here, sperm is ejected into the cervix. And here's the cervix right over here. I'm pointing it out in red. Fun fact, or not so fun, depends on how you look at it. About 200 to 400 million sperm are ejected with one single ejaculation or load per se. Crazy thing is that this journey towards the ovum isn't all that easy for the sperm. Yeah, it's like an obstacle course. Half the sperm will enter the wrong fallopian tube. So you see right over here how the egg is all the way here? Well, the sperm, some of it will go down this fallopian tube and then realize, oopsie, nothing here. But half the sperm will actually go the right way, which is this way right over here. And remember, only one egg is released from one of the ovaries, and it travels down one of the fallopian tubes. And many other sperm is just killed by the acidity in the vagina. So these die off, and the few that remain will still have to reach the ovum. Fortunately, the sperm are attracted to the ovum's scent. It has sort of like a sweet scent to it, so that's an added perk. But only one, or sometimes two sperm, that's when you get twins, penetrates the egg. Once that lucky sperm enters the ovum's outer layer, it locks other sperm out. Perhaps that's where the term cock blocker came from. Don't mind my humor. But the sperm causes the ovum's outer layer to thicken so that it keeps other sperm out. And when it penetrates the egg, then that's when conception begins. Once that lucky sperm and ovum fuse and begin to multiply and share genetic information, and remember, each gamete has 23 chromosomes, which will pair up to combine in the zygote, and that's that fertilized cell. This zygote, which is the single cell formed from the union of the two gametes, the ovum and sperm, starts to duplicate and divide within hours of conception. The zygote separates, splitting down the middle to form two identical cells, then four, then eight, and so forth and so on. It then travels down the fallopian tube for about 3 to 4 days, and it's on its journey towards the uterus. And the uterus is this section right in here that I'm highlighting. That's where the baby will grow and develop. Now, why can't the baby or the zygote grow in the fallopian tube? Ponder about that for a bit. Why does it have to travel all the way to the uterus? Why can't it just stay there? Well, if you recall from the earlier lesson, the fallopian tube is thinner than a strand of hair. How could it possibly hold a 7-pound to 10-pound baby? There's no way. Sometimes a zygote does get stuck in the fallopian tube. Sadly, when this happens, the embryo does not develop properly, and this transforms itself into an ectopic pregnancy. These zygotes end up dying shortly after and don't develop, and the pregnancy is not successful. So by now, the zygote has made its way down the uterine wall, and then it plants itself for another week or so. But sometimes when this happens, it's normal for bleeding to occur, as it may be because of the shedding of the uterine lining. And sometimes women confuse this light bleeding for a period. And when they end up realizing that they're pregnant, they often claim, "I can't be pregnant, I just had a period," when it was actually light spotting or bleeding from the implantation of the egg on the uterine wall. So for the first 10 days after conception, the zygote does not increase in size. And that's because it's not being nourished by the mother yet. All of its nourishment is coming from the yolk of the cell or egg. Do you remember what that's called? Yeah, the nucleus. And that, my dear, is the birds and the bees talk. There you have it.